Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you may be and on whatever digital device you may be logged onto. Welcome to the 15th edition of the SparkLabs Demo Day. 여러분, 안녕하십니까? bernicho입니다. And today I have the honor and pleasure and really the privilege to introduce to you a man who possibly maybe really does not need an introduction. Who am I talking about? I am talking about the one, the only MC Hammer. Now, usually when I introduce speakers, it's in an auditorium and everybody gets up and applauds. But given the fact that this year we're doing everything virtual, remote, and online, this will have to do. And while we have this up, we are now confirming that we have on standby all the way in Northern California, where he was born and bred in Oakland and still calls his home base the Bay Area. We are about to zoom in, turn on, and dive deep with MC Hammer. Hammer, can you see me? Can you hear me okay? How are you doing out there, Hammer?
Good. How you doing?
Hammer, if it weren't for COVID, chances are we would be doing this interview one-on-one, in person, face-to-face here in Seoul, Korea. But from where I'm sitting in my office, and I'm kind of taking a close peek on the screen, kind of sort of looking at your outdoor location, it actually looks like you've got a fireplace going on. You got a fire, cozy fire all lit up.
I'm actually in a portion of, my backyard. I got the fireplaces going, it's nice and cool. I thought we were going to, like do a fireside chat, but the production value didn't work out, but it's still all good.
It's all good. Dun, 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 dun. I think I've heard that line before.
Somewhere, huh?
Somewhere. Definitely. Now, with that unscripted, unprompted, unintended actually reference to one of your biggest hits from way back in the day called It's All Good, 1994 to be exact, gives me actually the perfect segue to kickstart this keynote session on a high note. So without further ado, let's get things started. Now, Hammer, you being a pioneering music artist who basically helped hip-hop become pop music through the late 90s and through the 1990s, really. Your career was marked by many number ones and many industry firsts. Now, when it comes to checking off all the boxes for undisputed certified superstar, Grammy Awards, check. MTV Video Music Awards, check. Multi-million selling gold, platinum, diamond albums, check. It's safe to say you've been there, you've seen it, you've done that. But nowadays, when someone surfs the net and searches for MC Hammer, or in these days more and more, maybe yelling at Alexa at who's MC Hammer, there's a very good chance that the top hits that pop up are going to be more and more of your tech industry forays and less about your music industry history. Somehow, buzzwords like tech investor or entrepreneur have really started to climb up and crowd out and maybe even override rapper and music artist as your main job titles, which leads me to my first question. When, and more importantly, what was your first taste in tech? Was it a specific person or a special event, or perhaps maybe even a chance encounter? What was the trigger? And what made you transition from MTV all day, all night on TV superstar to Silicon Valley Sherpa? How did this happen?
Well, they actually, for me, they're synonymous because capturing video, using the latest technology, all of that was always a part of my brand, the way I saw myself. And so if you look at my videos, going all the way back, even some of the special effects during my, like in Too Legit to Quit, they were all ahead, years ahead of their time. And that was based upon getting the right directors, understanding what the latest special effects were, the equipment, and things like that. So I had a lot of great artists, world-changing artists who were competitors. And I had to stay on top of technology in order to compete. So, Michael would always, have great directors, great effects in his videos. And I'm right here in the heart of Silicon Valley. So my thing was, let me find out what Apple is doing, what Silicon Graphics is doing, what is the next thing to make these videos better. So both from a Hollywood standpoint and from a technology standpoint, I had to keep my finger on the pulse. And so it just became a part of my DNA, to stay on top of technology. And then, my geographical location is right here in the heart of it.
Was there a time or a place you realized somehow you might have crossed over and maybe crossed the line from being a tech industry outsider to an insider? Was it a spur of the moment, sudden splash of Silicon Valley serendipity? Or was it more like down the road, Napa Valley, fine wine, something organic, where the transition process pretty much happened naturally, evolved through gestation, maturation, fruition period?
Well, I mean that came, but initially the moment was a thing called Thriller, that again just push you. Entertainment, film, content, rich media, premium content has always been a driver from Star Wars. All of those films, they were birthed here. The digital effects to make those films what they are all happened here. And so being surrounded around all of those innovators and creators, I believe it just went into my blood. So it wasn't one moment, but an ongoing moment of seeing people who would see things that aren't there, but then have the vision to say, if it's not there, I'll create it. So ILM was created by George Lucas because the effects that he wanted for his films didn't exist. So, Steve Jobs, he would see things that are not there and say, okay, how do we get better, right? Or improve it. And so being around that environment, it just kind of, it motivated me. And you got to remember, I'm coming all the way from the 80s. So in 89, 1990, 91, 92, 93, 94, I'm going all around the valley where these companies are emerging. And I'm trying to figure out how to get the best of the best so that my content would be better than other people. And then later would come the, becoming more of a tech entrepreneur, looking at companies from an investment standpoint, advising companies. All those things came, but they came organically. It was like I went to school first by doing all the research and interacting with founders and CEOs, engineers, and then just bringing all that together at a certain point and say, now let me go to the other side, but I still remain an artist.
What absolutely amazes me is the evolution of the hip hop revolution. When I rewind to my memories of the 1990s and to Generation Z kids out there, also known as Zoomers, 1990s was known as the last century. But hip hop back then was really known for as being an emerging, disruptive, status quo spinning tour de force, not only sonically, musically, but also socially and culturally. Now, when it comes to crossover influence, hip hop was, more often than not synonymous with, creating synergies, energies associated with, be it sports and or even fashion. But now when I hit pause and I fast forward and I press play in 2020, hip hop continues to be disruptive, but in ways and means that fans and critics, lovers and haters, and many people out there, including myself, could have never imagined. Now, hip hop is no longer fringe. It has really now become the forefront of drum machine roll, please, digital technology and investment. Now, many of the biggest hip hop stars from back in the day, when you read about what keeps them busy today, artists like yourself, Hammer, are known less and less for past music chart success and more for your recent investment success. Now, when you've got former Billboard topping rappers like Billboard chart topping rappers like Snoop Dogg or Nas or Will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas and Chamillionaire becoming multi-millionaires from their numerous non-music ventures, as well as juggernaut hip-hop heavyweights like Jay-Z, P. Diddy, and Dr. Dre, becoming de facto billionaires from passion projects that have probably more to do with bits and bytes instead of beats. Well, in the case of Dre and will.i.am, it actually was beats, but more about the headphones and the streaming music service that got snapped up by Apple. But that being said, what is it about hip hop that can't be taught at Harvard, studied at Stanford, or mastered in an MBA that has enabled and empowered yourself and a generation of hip hop music stars into becoming super successful entrepreneurs? What is the secret sauce?
Well, in order to understand the present, we just need to go back a little bit. Hip hop is an entrepreneur-driven genre, a business, and so most of us, we've always had control of our strategy when it comes to building our companies, our individual brands. Certainly, again, going back to when I got started, I walked into the record company with a marketing plan. I hired the directors, all these things. So we map out our marketing strategy, our street strategy, our visual strategies. So these things, we were self-made entrepreneurs from the very beginning, and the record companies were our partners. But they didn't understand the culture of hip hop. It was new to them, and neither did they understand hip hop entrepreneurs. So first understanding the culture was one thing, but then understanding the actual individuals who became rap artists, we had a different mindset. We came out of the crack era of the 80s. And so we had all of these different inputs going into our minds on survival, on ingenuity, and how to make things better. And so we took all of that and applied it to business, to technology, to opportunity. And so when you come from a grassroots position and you have to actually hands-on learn these things, they fought it early on. Specifically with me, Hammer, what are you doing? What's all this diversification? What's all this going into technology and business and marketing and branding? But as we went along, they started to see that their natural instinct was to embrace these things because it's in the very nature of being an artist, specifically a hip hop artist. That's different than the early on R&B artist, different than the pop artist. Their ideology was let the record companies do everything. They do everything. Hip hop coming out of the crack era, our thing was we're going to do it for ourselves and we're going to take control and we're going to manage. Now it took a while for, again, people to understand it on an individual basis, but after I blazed the trail early on, later certain branded artists or artists and labels began to embrace the ideology, and because they realized that they have it within themselves to do it, to execute.
Now, in many ways, be it tech, or be it music or tech, the order really doesn't matter. You've not only been a pioneer, but you've also been a bit of an anomaly, an oddity, an outlier in terms of making moves as an artist and as an entrepreneur. Do you actually remember your first encounter at a tech industry conference or a particular tech company office where people, I don't know, in the lobby or perhaps in the elevator, in the hallway, or even in the meeting room were kind of taken aback by you walking in and stepping in, and were they whispering and wondering, oh, isn't that MC Hammer? What's he doing here? What's going on? Is that really him? I mean, was there that moment where people realized this gigantic superstar music act is here in person in our office wanting to talk about tech? Do you remember when that was?
Well, I just think what stands out to me is probably 1992-ish, around that area. Again, AOL had to dial up, and when you dial up, you would get, the kink and all that. So at that time, I was still trying to, that was the beginning of me trying to figure out how to get my videos on the internet without degradation. I wanted it to look good. And that led me over to two places. One, Apple, and two, Silicon Graphics, SGI. And so what I remember that stands out is I got over to Apple, and there's these two kids, 15 and 16 years old. And they say to me, Mr. Hammer, we're going to solve your problem. We'll make it so you can get video on the internet and it's going to look good. And I said, well, how you want to do it? And they said, we're working on this thing called QuickTime. And that was like one of those moments that stands out for me, because from there, years later would come companies like YouTube, which again, I was at YouTube when they still had varmints, rats running around. They were on top of a piece of parlor, 5 or 6 computers and working it out. But that journey from the early 90s all the way to, the creation of YouTube, I pursued video on the internet. So it wasn't just like one conference. It was a continuous meeting of some brilliant young minds that were trying to create these companies and ecosystems around, the internet, around the things that would be coming. They created what's next. And that's what I was saying earlier about having that visionary aspect and saying, if it's not there, then I'll create it.
Now, I know you've got 5 kids that you obviously love dearly. And, God knows if anyone asked you to pick who your favorite would be, that would be impossible. You wouldn't, you couldn't, and you definitely shouldn't pick one as your favorite. So with that in mind, if you had to pick not one, but maybe 5 people in your life that you consider to be your most influential, your most inspirational mentors in your amazing eclectic journey from artist to entrepreneur, who would they be and why?
First of all, let me say there's one who is the most significant, and it's particularly early on and for a duration, and that would be Ron Conway. He gave me access to deal flow, relationships, individuals that I met, connections, everything from VCs again to upcoming engineers, founders, co-founders, and he created a system that no one else in the world has ever been able to replicate, and it was his own unique system. So he's uniquely the designer of the Silicon Valley that we know today, and he did that early on, almost as one man, moving it from down, in the Palo Alto area up to San Francisco and along the way. So Ron would be at the top of that, and as a mentor, and his ecosystem. Within his ecosystem were the relationships and the people that created what we know today, from the, all the way from the beginnings of the Googles, the Twitters, the, you name them. Mark Benioff, that's a different relationship, but also Mark's fantastic, brilliant, good man, good friend, visionary. But I could name a bunch. So, it was very different because it wasn't just one mentor. It wasn't just one moment, but it was one key figure mentor, and then the branches of his tree, or the branches of that tree that flowed into many areas. The deal flow. It's Angel, SV Angels probably had 600 companies they invested in. So imagine all of the people over those years. From 2000 to 2015 or 16, I was in that entire deal floor, seeing those type of deals and meeting the people.
Now, flipping the script and maybe perhaps a bit of a role reversal, now that you are an investor and a mentor and advisor, basically a Silicon Valley guru, very much like the people that you just mentioned. What do you feel are the most important, roles and responsibilities in guiding startup founders to find their path to future success as business leaders?
Well, the first thing is to recognize that things have really changed. When you saw, probably from your beginning, the Black Lives Matters movement, when you saw that movement initially confused people. People didn't know what the term or the phrase meant. They didn't know exactly what the agenda was. But I felt the spirit behind it. And I knew that this was not just a new organization / movement, but this was a new ideology. This was a new demand being placed on society and the world at large on things, the way they need to be done, the opportunities, equal opportunities, social justice, and all that. And I want to connect this to founders. And so when I saw it, I felt as though I know that the current artists, musicians, and entertainers are not doing what they're doing. Very important. So you can't just jump in front of the parade that already started and act like you're the leader. These new young people had new ideologies and new ways of doing things, and less compromising than the previous generations. Very important. So they don't tolerate the nonsense. So when I saw that, I equated that to what I had seen for the past 20 years in technology. When a Mark Zuckerberg comes along and he says, "I'm going to do my company this way," and you might get blowback, but he's stuck with his plan because he's going to change the way things are. Or if Twitter comes out and Jack and Ev and Biz are saying, "This is the way we're going to do this," and then you're going to get blowback, right? Or when YouTube comes out and says, "We're going to put videos and make them available," and Hollywood and other people who control IP and content say, "Wait, that's my content." The guys and their investors say, "Keep building, and we'll figure out later how to work the deal out," right? Let's build this company. Black Lives Matter says, "Listen, here's the challenge, here's the problem, and we need to solve it." And when I recognized that spirit, I said, "Oh, well, let's get out the way and let's go into a supporting role." So what do I say to new entrepreneurs right now? When you come with something today, first of all, I want to see a clear path to profitability. This is not the era or the market to say it's a long-term play. That's number one. Number two, I've seen several companies built out in the last 6 months during the pandemic that on the surface, it looked like, wow, they must have a team, 20 or 30 people, only to find out that it's 4 people, 3 people. And they are writing code and innovating and using the latest technologies. And so the third thing that I would say is that there is so much capital available. Most people don't think that if you're outside, but from the inside, and if this is your life, obviously you know that there is a tremendous amount of investment capital, VC capital available right now. And so I would say, have a great idea. Let the idea be the thing. So idea, you don't need to overbuild your team, and have a clear path to profitability, and stick with your idea. And if it's new and it's innovative, if it's disruptive, like movements have been, like the current movement that shocked the world, changed the world, and effectively changed the president of the United States. If you have something like that, stick to it and keep your head down and work hard.
That answer deserves an amen. Obviously, the great idea is the goal, is the vision, is the dream. But over the years, you've probably seen, you've probably studied, you've probably sat through dozens, probably hundreds, maybe borderline thousands of pitch decks and pitch meetings, ranging from the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly. Now, if you had to give a heads up to a startup about to walk into a meeting with you and your team, beyond the great idea, what are the most important things you look for that are absolute must-sees? And on the flip side, what are some of the do-nots, the don'ts, the things that basically are absolute turnoffs, and more importantly, red flags that flash, this meeting is over?
What's interesting about that is, again, I see a lot of stuff, right? The deal flow. I see a lot. And when I see the same thing, that's a lot of people still have the mentality of they see a company that's existing. And I'm not talking about being disruptive. I'm just talking about basically copycatting and just changing a little bit, right? Before you get to the point of walking in the door and presenting it, don't present something that's already there. It's just not motivating. It's not something that's going to get people excited. I'm looking for things that are well thought, that execution is a short distance, and that the people that the entrepreneur, because it's all about the entrepreneur. That's something that Ron Conway taught me very, very early on. He always invested in the entrepreneur first and the idea second. It's like the people. So hopefully when you walk in, the energy that you're giving off and the idea are both synonymous in strength, that it makes an investor, he wants to write the check just because he felt your energy. And then if the idea is solid and it's disruptive, and you can see from A to C, right? You can see it. This is going to happen. Then you're willing to roll the dice, invest, make it happen. So that's it's not necessarily step 1, 2, and 3, but it's my overall philosophy. So, and right now, I'm pretty excited about a lot of things that I've seen and things that are happening.
Currently, one of the hottest topics, not just in the music industry, but also more importantly in technology, is AI, artificial intelligence. Now, whether it's amusing distractions like, I don't know, Jay-Z reciting Shakespeare classics like a slam poet, or disturbing developments such as deep fakes popping up in everything from porn to politics, AI is both a subject of fascination and fear. What is your read? What is your take on AI, artificial intelligence? Is this something that smart people and smart money should be doubling down on in terms of investment? Or should it be something that maybe requires a bit more of a wait and see from the sidelines position?
Well, I'll talk about myself. I'm heavily invested in AI, believe in it wholeheartedly. And the first thing I don't think about is the novelty stuff that you mentioned, like somebody having Jay-Z read a poem or whatever that is. But that's of zero interest to me. I have no interest. I'm looking for the things that the applications of the AI that open up doors, that can create new things that don't exist, that can make life more convenient and things like that. And so, and with that comes obviously there's great monetization and market share that comes with that. So I'm more interested in that. And with that being said, I think there is a golden opportunity because we're still at the initial phases or stages of AI. AI is just a buzzword right now that people try to throw on everything without having any understanding of what it actually means and what it does. It has applications that go well beyond, Alexa, things like that. It's well beyond that. And so and then it drifts into things like neuroscience and consciousness and all these other things. The very building blocks of AI is based on all that, right? And so look at all those opportunities. And so what we've done, and I've spent the last 5 years on, is just making sure that AI can affect your day on a day-to-day basis, an hour-to-hour basis, to make life more convenient. That's the type of AI that I'm looking for, and I'm looking for building the ecosystem around that that allows you to build another company that plugs into those opportunities that are created by an AI that's focused on specifically making your day-to-day life easier. And let me just add to that by saying that when I say that, remove the word AI and just say whatever it is that I need, I want it delivered. I want to be able to use natural language processing, right? I want to NLP and just say it. I want to buy a new house in Seoul, Korea. I want to say it into my phone, and I want I want to be able to have the credit run, and I want to be able to sign a deal if it meets the criteria, all and be done. And I want all that done in 120 seconds, because AI, we can do it. It's done. It can be done right now. So from the biggest purchases to the smallest things, I want a pizza, I want a Coke, I want baseball tickets, I want concert tickets, I want a flight, I want all those things already done, already doing, and more to come.
One of the things that impresses me when I was reviewing and studying a lot of the interviews that you've done over the years is you're big on this concept, this thing known as CSR, corporate social responsibility. It seems to be that one of the signatures of what you feel is very successful in a startup and in a business is not just the bottom line, not just about increasing revenues and increasing profits, but more importantly, increasing investments, both in people and more importantly, in communities. Why do you feel the social awareness and the social responsibility is so important to a startup, to a business, and to an entrepreneur?
I mean, it's human. It's listen, without people having the ability to embrace or pursue happiness, right? Finding peace. And I thought about this earlier today. What would it be to have peace but have no love, right? Social responsibility from a corporation standpoint means that you want the people who work for you, you want them to be happy. You want them to have strong family and love. If the corporation is not doing things to help society, if they're not doing things to help the homeless situation, if they're not doing things to help with healthcare, which again in tech is not as much as a big issue because tech obviously benefits, you have that. But what about the people who are not involved in tech that are sleeping right down the street from you, right? So we have to be concerned about society. All these things that we create, all these gadgets, AI, you name it, whatever it is in tech, if it's not helping human beings find peace, love, and live better lives, then it's all for naught. It's all for naught. There will be a small group of people who can't even live good because they have to be fearful everywhere they go, because they may have stacks and stacks and stacks of, let's say, steaks. By the way, I'm a vegan, so I'm just using that as an analogy. But they may have stacks and stacks of food, hoarders, right? But the man just 30 feet away from them, he has it but a slice of bread. If you're not helping him, this is in jeopardy anyway. So if it's not your human side that says help somebody else, then self-preservation says you should be helping other people. I prefer that it is the human side. Corporations, I had the pleasure of being around Mark Benioff from his beginning with Salesforce. I mean, walking the hills of San Francisco and throwing back ideas and ideology. And Mark established from the beginning that the 1% and 1%, 1% of the hours, 1% of the revenues would go to people, to charities, to make the world better. I thought that was the greatest thing I ever heard. And again, he started that 20 something years ago, 20 years ago. And so that was also ingrained in me, and it was ingrained in me as a music. I started to Help the Children Foundation way back in 19 jobs, sports, business, that this foundation that I have could be helpful. It's the natural thing to do. It has a lot to do with the way you were brought up, your morals, and your environment. In the city of Oakland, this is the home of activism. This is the home of people who have always fought for the people, movements, all the way from the Pullman Porters up to the Black Panthers. This is what we've always been, like a community of, we're gonna help our people. And so that wasn't, I grew up and I'm groomed in that.
Being in the tech space and the investment space as long as you have, obviously you're going to have some hits and you're going to have some misses in terms of opportunities. I wanted to know if there were, for instance, any predictions you made 5 years ago that you were like, nailed it, hit it, got it right. And also if there were any predictions where you're like, oh, I totally didn't get it. I should have jumped at it. Or I just completely got it wrong. But more importantly is, instead of looking back, really, I want to ask you in closing, looking forward, what do you feel we need to be looking at, we should be focusing on, that we should be anticipating in the next 5 years? If we had this crystal ball and you're behind it and you're doing this 5 years from now, what should we see on that roadmap?
Well, let me answer that. So ooh is like every businessman. I wish I had put money in X, right? Whatever X is, right? X remains the unknown, right? But I get over that quickly because I am a thinker, an inventor, and I look forward, right? So two things. One, I'm gonna put my artist hat back on. I look forward to showing artists how to walk properly in your, look, I don't want to be self-serving, but this is what I want to say. How to walk, how to be a king, how to walk in greatness, how to walk gracefully in greatness and mastery of your craft. In other words, your whole catalog, you know how to deliver it, but you're now delivering it at a level that if somebody knows that you're doing a show and it's invite only and it's 100 people, there's a possibility that they could miss the greatest show they've ever seen. Why? As an artist at this stage in your career, you should always be able to hand sheet music to great musicians, guitar players and so forth, and horn sections and drummers, and they can strike up this great music that you created, and then you have the control of your cadence, your voice, the rhythms, and the emotions, and of course the presentation, the fashion, and the look. You should be able to step out in that environment and give the world the greatest show they've ever seen, and hope that it's captured and shared across all these platforms. And oh, by the way, since you own it all, you monetize it all too. That's a sideline benefit, right? So that's one thing I look forward to doing in the future, because I've made sure that not only have I mastered my catalog, but during the pandemic and prior to it, I've recorded another 100 songs that actually make up what music has been since the 60s until today, and that on the drop of a dime, I'm ready to deliver a presentation of that fits inside of Fortnite, that fits inside of Roblox, that fits inside of other environments, whether they be platforms or live music or touring or whatever. And what goes along with that, obviously, is, again, these are things that you own because you own yourself, right? So that's one thing. Two, we're looking down the road. The world would now have solved pandemics, right? Manageable. You've already done it there. So all we had to do was look and pay attention. It wasn't that difficult. It's like we didn't have to recreate the wheel. How are you managing the pandemic? Wow, look, it's going great. Maybe we should do it the same way. So we would have mastered the pandemic. I'm hoping, so let me say it's very important for me. One, I'm hoping that my culture, I'm hoping that Black people, African Americans, Africans, descendants of slaves, that we have 5 years from now, that women are at the forefront. Black women are at the forefront. I've been around Black men and women, but I'm saying it this way for a reason. I've been around Black men all my life. I come from every subset you can think of. The streets of Oakland, LA, West Coast, friends who know the streets, run the streets of the East Coast, the South, military groups of men, professional sports from my Oakland A's days. I've been around men all my life. I know their habits, they're good, they're bad, their idiosyncrasies. I know all of the way men think. We've done what we're supposed to do to a certain extent, and we also know that we've also kind of maxed out. We don't want to change. Men don't want to change. Men want to stay in control even if the train is off the track. But women have better vision today than men. I say that and I mean it. If you watch and listen to the way women think, their way of processing things, they are better at it we took too much time off. We got caught up in all other trimmings that come with success in business. And now the women are just like waiting. And just like a great entrepreneur, a great leader, a great CEO, they're ready to take the reins. They're ready to run our country, America. They're ready to run your country. They're ready. And so 5 years from now, I'm hoping that women are in not only in positions of making decisions, but they are literally leading the world. Then what does that mean? That means that men can be great supporters. Men will never stop having power and influence. And I think the world will end up being a better run place, a more sympathetic place, a more loving place, and above all, a more peaceful place. That's my 5-year outlook.
Wow. Talk about mic drops. That is going to be very hard to follow up on comments on with words of wisdom like that on what we should be expecting and looking forward to over the next 5 years. And with those words of wisdom, I want to thank you, Hammer, and I want to thank everybody out there who made the time to listen, to watch, and to experience this very unique and very special Demo Day 15. Hopefully, next time, Hammer, we can have you here in Seoul in person.
I look forward to coming to Seoul. I love Seoul, and I got friends in Seoul. And when I come, I'm doing it all from the business to tech to the music to I'm bringing the entire Hammer with me.
And we will get that fireplace ready when you roll into town.
Good to see you guys. Take care.
All right. On behalf of SparkLabs, stay healthy, stay safe, stay warm, and enjoy the rest of the day. 안녕히 가십시오.